This past week, Donald Trump authorized a missile strike on a boat coming out of Venezuela, and accusers of Jeffrey Epstein and very powerful individuals came out to make a statement. We're going to talk about that and a little bit about the changing media landscape going around the world and across the United States. I am your host, Sal Asante. This is the We the Patriots podcast. Let's get right into it. This past week, we had one of the most bizarre events I think I've ever witnessed, and that is the fact that a boat was attacked. No search, no seeming reasoning to do so other than the fact that the boat came from Venezuela. And it's a little bit troubling to me. I want to explain why that's the case. It's kind of throwing me off in my thinking a little bit, and well, it has me worried just like everything else. So I'm going to get right into it. This boat was coming directly out of Venezuela. Basically, as soon as it got into international waters on September 2nd, it was blasted by what is assumed to be a vessel in the United States. It could have been a drone. Thinking not. The reason I'm thinking not is just because of the video that was shown. That being said, it's a pretty scary event, even though I am an American citizen, and you can presume that the individuals that were killed in the attack are not American citizens. That doesn't make the situation really any better in my mind. What seems to have happened is that the assumption is that this is a drug running boat and there was no further information needed. They just blasted this boat out of the water. Now, I think there's something to be said with the fact that, well, I guess not the fact, but what could be assumed as though this action could have been taken without Trump's direct authorization. There could have been someone who gave the okay to the attack and Trump had to do the cover-up. He had to do the announcement. But whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, the person that is responsible is the president of the United States. And it's very disturbing to think that crimes or actions being taken can be countered without any real investigation. Again, no seizing of the boat, determining whether there actually was drugs on board. They just blew this boat to smithereens, killed everybody on board, and that's about it. It's a little bit freaky given the recent developments of all of the technology that the government is using, whether you're talking about Palantir, all the different AI that they're using to categorize us as citizens and even non-citizens, and collecting data that, is not necessarily collected by a human being. Stuff is all basically being done by machines, and it is a very freaky thought to think that your life could be impacted by the decision-making of AI, and an attack can be directed on you based on assumptions that may or may not be true. Now, I'm not trying to say that the people that were running this boat were not drug smugglers. There's a good chance that they were. But even with that all being said, we will never really have an idea. The only idea that we're going to have is the information that the government is providing us on this attack. And it is definitely kind of shocking me a little bit to see how far the usage of these far distance weapons has come. When you look at the usage of, say, something like drone strikes and just how often they happen over the last 4 presidencies, you can look at George W. Bush when drone strikes started. He had something like less than 100 confirmed attacked using drone strikes. You get to the Obama years, you get to a total of something like 1,100. And these are people who are doing the attacks. The president authorizing them is sitting in a desk somewhere. But when it comes to the actual drone operator, people that are actually pulling the trigger, so to speak, hitting the button, and they're also not connected to this weapon. The only information they may have is via a camera, and prosecuting crimes or the continuation of wars being done in this way is a scary thought, to think that you really don't have a connection with these people whatsoever and you're ending their lives. Becomes like a video game situation. Again, you have 1,100 drone strikes with Obama. Donald Trump didn't really get much better, considering he did roughly 700 drone attacks across his first term. It's only lasted about half of Obama's time, so the numbers are very nearly the same year over year. It actually started going down under Joe Biden, usage down to roughly 100 to 150 confirmed attacks that could always go up later. My whole point in bringing this up is that the way that our politicians are going about continuing these wars that have been going on for decades at this point is by removing our combatants from direct connection with the people that they're fighting and bring them into this drone situation and really not having any reasonable way to connect the recipients of these attacks with wrongdoing directly. Again, a lot of it has to do with video surveillance. It may have been scouting missions that have, collected data on a site or an individual that is deemed authorized for an attack. But at the end of the day, there's really no direct contact. There's no ability to get the information that is needed to, promulgate a safe attack. Doesn't really make sense. But my point in saying a safe attack is knowing that there are not innocent individuals that are going to be in the line of fire. You hear countless stories of the Obama years where bombing weddings, bombing apartment buildings, and not really caring about the possible side effects and really only caring about the main target. Well, something like this that just happened with the drug boat. We don't know the individuals that were on board. We know, and again, this is information coming from the government. All we know is that the boat left Venezuela and got into international waters and got blown up. It is definitely something to keep in mind that our government has the ability to do. It is a scary, scary thought. A lot of people when this Palantir stuff was starting to emerge and Palantir was gaining traction with the government, specifically under Donald Trump, many, many people were coming out in defense of the use and saying, well, I've done nothing wrong, so what do I have to hide? And to me, that's not really the point of all of this. It's going against the Constitution in a way that you have really no right to a fair trial, jury of your peers, your assumed rights of free speech and ability to conduct your life in a way to pursue your life, liberty, and your pursuit of happiness is cut short. And it just seems un-American at the end of the day. I think a famous quote to remember is one of Benjamin Franklin's when he said, "Those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And I think that's important to keep in mind. We have been, as a society, us as Americans have been selling out our liberties in the hopes of temporary satisfaction due to, or in the attempt of gaining some temporary safety. And it's really come down to the fact that we are selling away every last bit of liberties that we have. You think about everybody's day-to-day experience if you travel at an airport. Think about how much of your information you need to give away to secure a loan for a car or get a mortgage, sign a lease on an apartment. And there are so many things that are, I would say, crossing a line of having any sense of real privacy in your life that we've sold ourselves so far down the road, it's going to be really hard to get it back to a place that we can honestly say that we have some sense of liberty. And I really don't think that that's coming back. It would take a massive change in the system. Again, these systems that are being implemented, something like Palantir, where conglomeration of data on American citizens, non-citizens, people living in the country, people here on visas, all of this stuff is getting put into a system, and we are all, as a people, getting put into categories of threat assessments of whether we are a danger to the system. And this stuff, again, you might be the one that is not affected by this today. But you think about what if the other side, and depending on what side you're on, it could be the one that's in power right now, it could be the one that's in power in 4 years. When the other side gets in power, what are they going to use this information for? It's not like the blocks of information go away. It was really the same thing for years. People, you think back to the COVID years when there was vaccine mandates and you were forced to have a vaccine, say, to enter a restaurant or to enter your place of work. And a lot of people were saying, well, I got my vaccine. I have nothing to worry about. If someone didn't want to get that vaccine or went against their religious beliefs or any number of reasons why someone may not have gotten that, but it doesn't allow them to live the life that they wish to live here in the United States, you are selling away your liberties for this, again, temporary sense of safety that at the end of the day, does not really exist. And a lot of it, you hear it too with the gun laws and gun ownership. When you talk about the Second Amendment and the fact that it says right there in the document that there shall be no law to infringe on the right to bear arms. And yet we pass more and more laws every single day to diminish the amount of people that can legally own weapons. And a lot of gun owners, even themselves, say, well, it doesn't affect me. I'm a responsible gun owner. And at the end of the day, if they just make another law to outlaw whatever gun you own, whatever device that you have, all of a sudden you are in that group. And if someone who does not agree with your way of life gets into power and actually takes advantage of that situation, you will be on the receiving end of possibly imprisonment for going against the law when you really had done nothing wrong, or what you're doing was not wrong until 5 minutes ago. So these are the issues that I have with the recent attack on the boat in Venezuela. I think that we have, as a society, gotten so far away from what it truly means to be American, how we are to carry ourselves and how we conduct ourselves in the international sphere. And I think the blame can go on from Trump to Biden to Obama to Bush. Every single one of these people is guilty of not following the guidelines of what it means to be an American, what it means to be an American politician. So I think it's important to keep an eye out for this. It is very unlike us as a country to offensively attack someone. In most cases, even if it's propaganda, you're going to look for some way to defend yourself, defend your freedom, um, stop the terrorists, so to speak. This is people bringing drugs into the country, allegedly, that we have no way of really fact checking, finding out if it was true or not. We're just living in a world where the president feels that it's okay to authorize an attack on a boat running in international waters. It's a little bit freaky from my point of view. Now to move on, I think it's important to bring this up from the other day. I'm not sure how many of you saw this, but there was a whole bunch of survivors of Epstein that came out and seemingly are holding the government's feet to the fire, saying that they're going to compile their own list. They know who they were dealing with. They are going to put together the people that perpetrated these disgusting sexual crimes on them, and they're going to put out the list, allegedly. Now, there's a couple of things that I need to say on this. Number one, I'm very happy that this story is not going away. I think that everybody who is in power that has been connected to this issue, whether you're talking about Donald Trump, all of the different politicians in the United States from high to low level, or people abroad that have been affected by this or a part of this scheme, they need to be held accountable. And it is disgusting to me to think that a lot of our world and the leadership of our world could be in on this plot to take advantage and take away the vulnerability and the innocentness of children. And they get away with it because of their power. I think these people need to be held accountable, and I'm very happy about this. However, there are some issues that I have with the way that this is being handled from the survivor's point of view. Number one, of course, is that I am not sure, and based on what I heard, I can't exactly tell. It seems not that these people got legal advice. And if they did, it didn't seem like it was great legal advice. If I was one of those victims, which I most certainly am not, so I don't know how they would be feeling. I don't know how they are. I can only imagine from a third person point of view what is going on in their heads. But if I am one of those people that has gone through these horrors, I would want to make sure that I have the best chance possible of prosecuting the people that did the things to me, or getting the people prosecuted. I'm not going to prosecute them myself. With that being said, I would definitely have, in that position, wanted to seek legal counsel and see what would be the best route to go about this. And in my opinion, and this is my armchair lawyer, I'm not in any way, shape, or form a student of the bar, none of this. I can't imagine that it's smart to put your face out on a camera. They have not named any names yet. That being said, putting your face out on a camera, basically putting yourself as a target to these individuals who may be held responsible for the crimes done onto them. I can imagine that that's a good idea. again, I'm not a lawyer, but the only thing that I could think would be a better way of going about this would have been compiling the list before making a media statement and actually getting it out there using anonymity, preserving the people who were affected and their identities because they've already been through hell. And making things blow up to this level, I think, was a premature mistake. And, I don't think I'm saying anything crazy here by pointing out the fact that someone who is very tied up in this whole scheme in Bill Clinton is tied to many, many people, Bill and Hillary, to be fair, is tied up with many, many people who are close to them that are no longer living and are deemed to have committed suicide. In many instances where the suicide and the actual story of the death does not really add up. Putting yourself out in that realm and opening yourself up to attack, having put your face onto a camera, even if you didn't mention a name, these people are clearly willing to go to lengths that are absurd in order to protect themselves legally. That may even be going as far as to have people killed. One of those people possibly even being Jeffrey Epstein himself. If that's the case, I can't imagine that it was intelligent to put your face out there and not having any sort of anonymity, not being able to conceal your identity. Again, you have already gone through hell. I can't imagine it to be a great idea. So that's really my main issue with this. Again, I'm very, very happy. Happy might not be the best word, but I think it's important to keep this conversation going around the Epstein case, around all of the people that are accused, because at the end of the day, these people are sick fucking people and they deserve to rot in prison, if not be killed themselves for the crimes that they've committed. And we're really just letting them walk free. And it just seems like everything that continues to be rolled out on this Epstein case, the more and more that we find out from officials and, official proceedings like this, not that this was official, but people coming out, making a statement, putting it on camera, everything seems to line up for people that want to continually cover up this madness instead of actually finding the truth. Whether you're talking about Pam Bondi giving that phase 1 files, all redacted information that we all already had out in the public, and then further coming back out and saying, yeah, there are no files, there's no video evidence, this never really happened, and continuing a cover up. Whether you're talking about that, whether you're talking about Trump going against his followers for thinking that there's something to the Epstein case, which there most certainly is, or just people not talking about it for decades. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein's original arrest was something like 20 years ago or so, and we still really don't have much official information at all, whether we're talking about that arrest or talking about the arrest of him in 2019. We just don't have much information, and that is wrong. I think the conversation needs to continue to be held, and it is important that, shows like mine, which are not massive, but at least help drive some conversation. Shows like mine, all the bigger podcasts in the world continue to talk about it. Things like Joe Rogan, people like Tim Dillon, who I've loved recently, Theo Vaughn, all these people continue to keep talking about and keeping the conversation going when it comes to the abuse of minors. And I think that that is the way to bring it about. And the reason that I do is the changing media landscape. So there was a study that came out, I think it might have even been last year. Let me make sure of what I have here. So this was put out at the end of last year, September of 2024. And it was the amount of people in different demographics that consume different kinds of news on different platforms. It is really fascinating to me to see the stark contrast in how the older generations are receiving their news and watching their news as compared to the younger generations. I think a clear assumption that could be made, and you would be correct, is that the younger generation is a lot more apt to use their phones, listen to podcasts, and the older generations are more likely to be watching, mainstream news networks on TV, listening to the radio stations. So when you look at the 65 and up, you're looking at over 60% of them consume all of their news, or their primary source of news is television, going down to somewhere around 20% of them only that are using digital devices, being a phone, utilizing that. When you talk about as you scale back the age, it becomes more and more people that are using digital devices. They're either getting their news from third parties, or they're getting a lot of their information from podcasts. Goes all the way up to 86% when you get to the ages of 18 to 29. And I think that this is so important. And it scales down from there. Again, all the way down to somewhere around 20% for the older generations that are using the newer platforms, using their phones, using podcast apps, using, third-party news reporting apps, independent news media, things like this. It is so important that these conversations keep being had on platforms like this, or, the Joe Rogan podcast, Theo Vaughn, Tim Dillon, Lex Friedman's podcast even. It is extremely important that these conversations are just continuing to be held, because I think that more than anything, more than even the survivors putting out essentially a non-threat because there was no names put out there, I think it does more. It keeps people held accountable. There are a lot of politicians even at this point who are paying attention to these shows, at least if for nothing else but to keep an eye on who is out to get them. And it's very important to keep these people in a position where they know that we are the ones who put them in power, not the other way around, not the ones that hold us underneath power. So if there's anything to be taken away from this episode here today, it's that I think that it is vastly important for us to continue these conversations where we are voicing our opinions. I am firm believer that if you feel like you have a voice and you have something to contribute, then you should not be keeping your mouth shut. Start a podcast, start a blog, start writing your feelings down or recording what you're thinking, because at the end of the day, whether you have a viewer, you have 100, or you have 100,000 or a million, however many viewers you have, however many people that you're affecting, it matters so much to that person to hear a different point of view that is not the regurgitated crap that you see on mainstream media. It is still a challenge when I am talking to someone and it's clear that they get all of their news from somewhere like Fox News or CNN, and they're just not getting a nuanced opinion on anything. They're getting regurgitated talking points, all of the propaganda that the machine wants them to hear, and nothing that is out of actual substance for them to be upset with their leadership. At the end of the day, we are supposed to be a government for the people, by the people. And more, every single year, every single election that comes up, it seems that the politicians are getting further and further away from really being that way with us and accepting and really moving on with the fact that we put them in power. They seem to think that they own the world and they run the world. And it's just things like this. It's little things and big things like this. People that are willing to go out on a limb or have other people on their shows to disseminate information that is not widely dispersed on these mainstream news platforms. That is really what is the best form of media today, I believe. And it is a great sign that more and more kids being 18-year-olds at this point, younger than me, but very much adults, younger adults are making the decision to ditch these mainstream platforms. I think that it's a very good telling sign that these platforms do not have much life left in them, and that people are going to have to adapt to a better way of getting the information out, going to long form podcasts, being able to have a conversation that actually focuses on ideas, and you don't need to get a 5 to 10 second soundbite in order to get your point across. You can actually lay out your thoughts with facts, with feelings, and get things out to the people in the way that they want to take them in. So I do want to end the show on this today. I'm not sure how many of you people are interested in InfoWars. If you're not really sure what InfoWars is, this is a platform that stick my own anecdote in for a second here. I'm not a huge fan of where InfoWars has gone over the past 7 to 10 years. There has been clearly a dying signal from them, ads all over the place, selling all sorts of bullshit on their website and stuff like this. But this is the site run by Alex Jones. And pretty much since the Sandy Hook incident, and he got sued to oblivion by the surviving parents, ever since that moment, it has been a downhill roller coaster for him. But he had an incident over the past week or two, I want to say, where his most popular host left the show, and his name is Owen Schroyer. It is fascinating to me how Alex Jones had essentially tried to make his own mainstream media platform into really what the news is that we all see on our TV if someone has it turned on. And he tried to make that lots of editorial control. And you get that sense when you listen to someone like Owen who was driving a lot of the traffic to InfoWars over the past 10 years, leave and explain why he left. Alex being the person that he is, the controlling person that he is, and always trying to control the narrative when someone like Owen is seemingly, I, again, haven't really been listening, so I'm taking his word for it, but seemingly is trying to give information that is maybe not the most flattering to Trump, is against the conservative machine narrative, and just how quickly someone can get turned on. This has been fascinating to me. So if any of you are interested or were Alex Jones fans, maybe you are Alex Jones fans and you didn't hear about this, go check it out. Go see what's going on over there. Alex seems to be blowing a gasket. Does not seem that InfoWars is long for this world. And it's a very fascinating subject if you're into these kind of shows, into this kind of show. I think that you'd be interested in what's going on over there. Is seemingly going to make his own show now, from my knowledge, trying to have it out in the next month. So that'll be very interesting to see how that show goes and what kind of information he's going to be putting out. It seems to be very news heavy. So if you're into that kind of stuff, be on the lookout for that. Go check out the situation of Alex blowing his top off. And other than that, I will catch you guys next week. Hope you have a wonderful one. Peace out.
I want to be something, not nothing. Trapped inside my dream and I'm running away from these demons. But the feeling's so good, I'ma keep dreaming.